Welcome back to another edition of the Gurus podcast. Theo, Mike, and I am X. Welcome in. If you're just tuning in, be sure to check out our other video, the Survivor 50 draft, once this finishes. But make sure to also like and subscribe. We really appreciate the views pumping up the last few days and all those new subs coming in. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different in our Survivor 50 coverage. 10 questions we need answered before the season starts. And guys, I think we should just get right into this today. So, Mike, I want to hear your thoughts on question one here, which is who has the most to gain from Survivor 50?
This one really tricked me a little bit. I was thinking a few different people. I landed on Mike White, actually. Mike White, the last time he played this game was David versus Goliath. He was kind of a fish out of water in terms of he was on the Goliath tribe, but he was out there just to prove that he can actually play a game like this. He was a Survivor fanatic. He was a big fan. And at Final Tribal Council, he made a point of he was comparing this game to like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But for him, the pot of gold was not what Survivor was about for him. It was about the rainbow. It was about the journey of being on Survivor and proving to himself that he could do it. And in my opinion, he played the best game that season. Just didn't get the votes in the end because ultimately he didn't really need the money. He just didn't want to. It was more about winning the title of Sole Survivor than it was actually winning the $1 million. And unfortunately, people do vote on the $1 million. I think this time around, Mike White's going to try and win the game. And I think that if he is able to win Survivor 50, a season full of players from all different eras, that would literally put Mike White into some conversations that it's like, okay, he played a really good game the first time, came runner-up in a really quality season, comes back in an even better cast. If he's able to win now, we will be looking at him as, okay, because not a lot of people have played Survivor twice and not ever been voted out, got in the Final Tribal Council each of their first two times. I believe Amanda did it, Sandra did it. It's really difficult. So he's never gotten his torch enough. If he's able to go all 26 days this time and follow it up with that 39-day performance in David vs. Goliath, I think that would be, he's got a lot to gain here. I mean, he's got if he's able to win the season or put together another dominant season strategically, he's going to be in conversations of, players that have won before.
Yeah, plus you think White Lotus will get a viewer's bump if he does well.
I'll say.
My thing with Mike White is I feel like when we talk about David versus Goliath, he's like the winner with an asterisk next to it. We all kind of know he won the season.
Yeah.
He just didn't win the money because he didn't really want it, as you mentioned there. I think Mike White's a great answer for this. I went a different route, and I went more of a star quality route, and that's why I chose Rizzo. I think Survivor right now is a star problem. We've had a lot of great players the last 5 to 10 years of this show, but we were talking off camera. Who's like the last real star from the Survivor franchise? There's a Tony argument. There's a Jeremy argument. There's some names we could float around, but it's been a while. It really has. There hasn't been one, at least that's Winners at War, in my opinion. I think if Rizzo is able to make another deep run here on Survivor 50, he's kind of cemented himself as a character of reality television. He was really impressive his first time out. And the thing with Rizzo is obviously his name is eye-catching. He does the RIZGOD, Riz God Baby gimmick, and that's all fun. But he is a solid player as well. So if you kind of marry those two things together, you have someone that could be kind of a leader of this new era. We're kind of begging for someone to take that mantle. And I think Rizzo has the opportunity to do that.
I think with the new era, we're obviously we're fiending for a star in this post 41 era. I would say that there's a few players that did not win before. Like, I don't think he has to win the show to be considered a star. I mean, I think I view Kelly Wentworth as a star, and she got to Final Four, and then she was a pre-merge boot, and then, but you have to, in my opinion, for Rizzo to become a star, because we both agreed last season, 49, not the best cast in the world, wasn't necessarily playing with the best strategic lines in the world, but to me in this season, he needs to have a move, like a move that we all remember Rizzo by, because I think 49, while he actually had a really good game, I think people will remember more this season. So whatever he does on this season is going to be A, more fresh in our minds, and B, we're going to value it more because of the cast of people he's on. So I think for him to enter star status, he's going to have a really big move. I'm thinking about like a Denise blindsiding Sandra with her own idol. He's going to have to do something like over the top in a season full of, characters. He's going to have to stand out because there's a lot of people that are characters. They're all on here for a reason again. So he's going to have to really stand it out to become a post 41 star in Survivor.
Theo, hop in here. Did
Yeah,
you have a name for
I
this?
was thinking about Rick here, kind of a different game than what you're describing that Rizzo needs to play, because his first season, he was an early boot, and then we saw him kind of raise up through immunity wins and through brilliant idol plays. We obviously think very highly of him. He was, spoiler alert, the first pick in our draft. But I think for him to really elevate, we need to see him play like without advantages and show that he can still kind of control the game without having advantages all the time. So I think he has a lot to gain here.
That's a good point. And also, X, do you think that the name of the season is in the hands of the fans? So do you think the advantages are going to be running wild? Do you think they're going to be toning back on them a little bit? I know in the teaser we have Mr. Beast is on the island, Billie Eilish Boomerang idols are out there, but like, do you think the advantages will play a big enough role to where the actual game, does it affect the actual gameplay of the season?
I mean, I think it has to. I think that's just modern Survivor. I want to believe that this is an authentic voting process and CBS is actually going to listen to the results of these polls. I just don't really believe it, to be totally honest. I want to circle back to something Theo just said, though, about Rick. On any other season, Rick does not come back for season 50, right? He was really a large benefit of not only Edge of Extinction, but kind of having a cast that was sick of the 4 returning players that came back and were begging for someone to kind of rise through the cracks and have something there. And I believe it was War Dog. I don't know if it was on the season or after. He made a mention of like, we're not going to look poorly on Devins because of how the season played out as far as like him getting voted out and coming back. Like that didn't matter to them because he was just playing the season in front of him. So I think with Devins, we need to see like, was he a one trick pony that was allowed to kind of be this great character from his season's gimmick? Or is he just great on his own? Like, was it just a bad mistake early on? And he more resembles the latter half of that season more
Well,
so than the guy that got voted out early.
right. In his defense, I'm gonna defend my number one overall pick here. In Rick Devins' defense, that season Joe Anglin was on it, and Joe famously doesn't lose challenges. He does not lose tribal immunity. So his tribe, whatever tribe he's on, always wins immunity challenges. So unfortunately for Rick Devins, he just had to go to tribal council one too many times in the pre-merge process. And the first time Joe was even allowed to be voted out, he was the first out in the merge. But he was not actually eligible to be voted out until the merge. So I think, unfortunately, Rick Devins kind of got the bad straw of like the tribe swaps. He was always on a bad tribe competitively. But you saw in the post merge, I'm glad we were able to get Rick Devins back in the game because you saw in the post merge, he's dominating all of these puzzle challenges. That's interesting because if he's able to survive the early portion of the game, which he wasn't able to in Edge of Extinction, but he got the gimmick to get back in the game at the merge, then you saw his run. I'm interested to see this year, can he again survive the pre-merge, because that's where he went out last time. So we wouldn't even have gotten star Rick Devins had it not been for that gimmick. So again, this season I don't believe we're gonna have Edge of Extinction. I don't believe we're having any Redemption Islands. So if you're voted out, you're voted out. I'm assuming. So that's why it's pretty imperative. It's pretty important for Rick Devins to actually prove that it was not a gimmick season, which Edge of Extinction ultimately was a bit of a gimmick season.
Yeah. And speaking of going out early, that transitions to our question number 2 here. Whose legacy could be most impacted with an early exit? So kind of the negative flip of our last question.
I'm kind of thinking Aubrey here. I'm sorry to go to Aubrey here, but she's on a downward trajectory, a downward stock, if you will, of the first time we saw Aubrey and Co Wrong, she was wonderful. And then she comes back just 2 seasons later on Game Changers and makes a final 6 or final 5, I believe. So 2 really impressive showings. I personally did not love her game on Game Changers. I thought she got out out strategized by some of the other strategic threats on the island. And that kind of viewed her to me a little bit differently. But it wasn't until Edge of Extinction where I was really like, ooh, I don't know. I'm a little bit turned off on Aubrey right now because she had zero self-awareness in that season, no real strategic mind in that season. So it was all of like the qualities that we thought would make Aubrey good. She didn't have any of those when she came out the 3rd time. So I think this 4th time, if she's gone early and is not able to make an imprint, because a few of these names, like if Stephanie LaGrossa goes out early again, I don't think it's really that big of a deal. I don't think it's going to tarnish her legacy. She went out early in Heroes vs. Villains, another all-star cast. But there's people out there that genuinely think Aubrey's like a sneaky winner pick. There's people that still really like Aubrey. So I think her legacy could be tarnished a little bit here if she's an early boot, because we will now remember her most recently in 38 being an early boot. and then in 50 being an early boot. And then suddenly we're looking at her 4 games total, and we're looking at it a little bit differently. We're like, okay, Ko-Rong, maybe she didn't deserve the win that season. Maybe she never adjusted her game. Maybe she's just one strictly strategic player, a little bit of a paranoid player, and maybe those things don't mix well. As a 4-time player now. So I think for Aubrey, there's a lot of pressure on her. If this was like a most pressure question, I think Aubrey's got the most pressure on her to actually make a legit run, and you better not be out early again.
I'm going to save my thoughts on Aubrey for a little bit for a different question. Theo, who did you have here?
Yeah, I kind of think the right answer here is Christian. Like, I think he's safe as a fan favorite. But if he goes out early and then the peak of his legacy is kind of just a 7th place finish in David versus Goliath, you kind of can't elevate him into the talks you want to elevate him into, even though I think he's one of the smartest and most brilliant players to ever play the game. But I think his legacy is hinging on him being able to make a deep run in this season.
Yeah, and Christian inspired this question for me, and he's also my answer here because I think there is this recognition from David versus Goliath that the 2 best players were Mike White and Christian. And Christian probably had a higher ceiling than Mike White as a player, but because he was so likable and so kind of socially unaware about his own likability, he got voted out. And that was kind of his downfall. Despite being such a brilliant player, he always had a great read on things around him. He just didn't understand his own threat level, which I think is almost endearing as someone who was able to get out in that fashion that he did. It wasn't like he was really blindsided. I mean, he knew the threat was blossoming on his back. He just didn't know it was happening so quickly.
Well, was
And I
Mike
think
White, the storyteller, like really like created the perfect narrative about how
yes.
it was David versus Goliath, and he was the perfect David. And if he got to the end, like it was really like you needed the creator of the White Lotus to kind of create a story to get him out. But
Yes, and it happens so fast, and I think that's what's so fascinating about this, that if Christian goes out early here, he kind of goes out twice as being socially unaware, where the first time we're giving him a pass for that because he was so brilliant. He had so many strategic moves. He was ingratiating himself with a wrestler, for Christ's sakes. He was so out of his comfort zone, and he's able to maneuver so perfectly, and he just got caught up in the moment. If he gets caught up in the moment again, there goes this like super underrated strategic mind, and now he's just kind of a paper airplane that started his Survivor career the highest of highs and then just quickly crashed down in the blink of an eye.
Well, here's why I don't think it's Christian. Because I think that there's a world where he is an early exit, but I don't view his legacy as tainted. Maybe Survivor people will. This is a cast of a lot of really good strategic minds. I personally view Christian at or near the top of those strategic minds.
Same.
If the castaways, like me, also view him as that dangerous, there's a world where he gets clipped early and there's just simply nothing he can do about it because people have that they have that image of him being this guy with brilliant reads who can get along with every single walk of life kind of person here. He's got along with the wrestler, like you said. He got along with Gabby. He got along with Goliath. He got along with Davey, Carl, who was a truck driver. I mean, he's gotten along with everybody, and that may be viewed as a weakness because he's so good socially. They may try and clip him early. And unfortunately, that's just kind of his personality. So I don't think he can necessarily change his personality on this show. He has to simply just be himself, and that could get him in trouble. But I don't think an early exit would really – I wouldn't personally look at him differently. I think this is a season where you want to get those strategic threats out early, and unfortunately, he falls under that line. So if he's able to make a good showing, that would only actually increase my view of him because I think in this season, he's going to be one of the people that are going to be targeted, at least early. If he can navigate those early bullets, that would be really impressive. If he's not, I would be like, you know what? Tough season, tough draw. Did not get a cast on any of his former David vs. Goliath people here. Not on the same cast as Angelina, or not on the same tribe as Angelina, not on the same tribe as Mike White. So he doesn't have those relationships to build off of. He's going to have to really work to once again be a social butterfly and kind of connect with everybody. He's going to be on a tribe. I believe he's with Jonathan, if I'm not mistaken. So he's going to be able to have to mingle with him. It's either Jonathan or Ozzy, one of those two. But he's with a physical meat shield, if you will. So if he's able to connect with those guys, he'll definitely have a chance. But I think if it's an early exit for Christian, I personally wouldn't. Just me. Maybe the Survivor fan people will, but I personally would not. I wouldn't look at him that poorly.
Yeah, I hear you. I think my only rebuttal would be everyone here is qualified. Everyone here is dangerous. Everyone's here for a reason. Is he necessarily more dangerous than everyone else? I wouldn't necessarily believe so. I do think of him in that light the same way you were talking about, but I still think he has an ability to adapt. He can't change who he is as a person, but his downfall last time was trusting Gabby for far too long, far after she was ready to vote him out. If he can kind of find a number one who is more endearing to him and has his back, if he's able to craft a bond like that, I think he has a great chance to do something. If not, he could be an early exit, and I think that would be detrimental.
He's just got to manage his threat level.
Yeah.
Last season, I think last time he was on, Davey used an idol for him when he got votes, and he did not know he was going to get votes. So the awareness of how big of a target you are, how big of a threat you are. Unfortunately, he wasn't conscious himself enough of how big of a target he was on the island. I mean, Mike White was saying we can't bring Christian to the end. We got to get him out eventually here. I feel like he was like the lead guy of guys. He's going to be receiving votes for like 3 straight tribal councils. So he's got to be able to control that threat level. It's going to be really difficult, but if he can, I think he's got a good chance.
I totally agree. And I think staying in the same vein, it's kind of a different phrasing of the same type of question we just had here. Who's the most desperate for a good showing? What I meant by this, kind of the crux of this question is, who just really needs to show out? Not necessarily that their legacy would be impacted one way or the other. They are just really in need of taking that extra step in their survivor journey.
Theo, what do you got for this one?
I think this is Ozzy, who was like really jumped out of the screen on his early season appearances, and like became a fan favorite. But I feel like he didn't really have a moment on Game Changers, and it kind of seems like as like we're getting more personalities onto this season, I think he's kind of at risk of just getting lost in the shuffle on a season like this, where like when he first came on the show, he was a mainstay and was one of like the big figures of the season. So I'd be worried about him kind of being lost in the shuffle here. I think he needs a moment.
I don't hate the Ozzy pick at all. I think he's coming back to prove something about how I can still do this. It feels like to me it has to be one of the old school players, right? I mean, it has to be somebody who's not thought of maybe as they once were. So I'm thinking about maybe Colby, although I don't I don't know if he's desperate for a good showing. I mean, I don't know why he would come back after 30 seasons off unless he wants to put together a good showing. But my thing with Colby is last time we saw him was Heroes versus Villains 30 seasons ago, and it was not a good showing. We mentioned he finished 5th place, but we all agree he was kind of pathetic in that season. So I think Colby, maybe not desperate for a good showing. I think he needs to at least give us a reason to confirm, okay, this is why you were back. Okay, give us at least a reason to be like, okay, that's why Colby's here again. It's because there's some skeptics. I think there's some skeptics on this very podcast. It's like, why are we seeing Colby for a 5th time? Exactly. So, I mean, if you're able to get Colby back and, looking like a legitimate winner threat, which I don't think that there's really a path for that, but if he is, that would be something. I mean, I personally would view Colby differently if he came on the season as a new person, not the Heroes versus Villains Colby, not even the All-Stars Colby, but the personality we saw in Australian Outback, but without obviously the physical abilities.
Yeah, this is Aubrey for me, and the reason I didn't have her for the legacy question is I think her legacy is already incredibly tarnished after her
Really?
last 2 showings. I really do. Because in Game Changers, she was kind of a goat, which is unbelievable to think after her Koa Wrong showing.
Yeah.
And then on Edge of Extinction, she was just never in the game. She never had any idea of what was going on around her. So when you're 1 and 2 in reality in good versus bad showings, a 1 and 3 mark doesn't really impact your legacy that much, in my opinion. But I think a good showing, getting back to what you had, making that 2 and 2 for good and bad showings, I think that does matter a hell of a lot more. Aubrey has really high highs in this game where she's able to kind of manipulate others around her by just being a kind of mother-like figure. But what really hurt her last 2 times out was just not understanding that she was a target, kind of in the same vein as Christian, but even worse because Aubrey thought she was able to just run back her same playbook from Koa Wrong and that was going to work. It didn't work at Game Changers. And then somehow with Edge of Extinction, she's like, I'm going to try it again. And it somehow worked even less. Shocker, I know. And it was kind of fun, her on the island, and that was good television at points. She was kind of like the leader of Edge of Extinction at points of that season. That was cool. But I don't think she wants to do that again. I don't think she wants to be an early exit. I think she is really desperate for a deep showing to kind of prove that she is one of these like high level strategic minds. I think she's lost that moniker over her last few showings. If she is able to make a deep run here, she could get it back.
I just wish if I was Aubrey, I wish I never did that Edge of Extinction season because I think her going to a season full of
Yeah.
newbies, outside of David, Wentworth, and Joe, it was an all newbies cast, and from the get go, they were like, "Yeah, we're not letting Aubrey even implement any game plan on this island at all." So like for her, I compare her a lot to JT, who they both had excellent first showings, then they came back and kind of got played. In Heroes versus Villains, JT got played to the ultimate degree, and then Aubrey I thought kind of got played a lot in Game Changers. And then the third time JT came up, it was in Game Changers, but it was an all returning cast again. So JT's not going on to a newbie season, but he was just maybe the worst player in that season as far as strategically. He was horrible. He famously got Malcolm voted out. He got himself voted out. That was really bad from him. And then equally as bad from Aubrey, but I'm going to give her a little bit more of a pass because it was largely a newbie season. I think this bodes well
she
for
was
her now.
DOA. She was dead on arrival.
She was dead on arrival. I think now this bodes a little bit well for her because there's everyone who's already played before. So she's not immediately on the island. She doesn't hit the island as the biggest threat on the island. She's not going to be the biggest threat on the island day one. She may eventually, but if she runs like the same playbook, can she actually go far? I don't know. I kind of don't buy it.
Yeah, I don't buy it either. But I think there's a world where she's able to link up with maybe a Cherie and try to
like last time
find that alliance that
yeah.
didn't really work last time because Aubrey was kind of big move heavy on
and
Game
she also
Changers.
never really trusted Cherie. She was always paranoid that Cherie was scheming, which again, Cherie was scheming, but she was never really fully trusting of Cherie. I guess it's hard to be. But that kind of got her in trouble. She was kind of she kind of had her hands in everyone's pots and wasn't able to kind of got herself in trouble.
Yeah. And kind of looking back, we keep mentioning old seasons, and there really is this divide right now. And that leads us to question 4, Theo. Who has the advantage off the bat? Is it these OGs or is it these new era folks?
I kind of think because none of the OGs are winners, I kind of like the OGs here. Like if they were coming in as previous winners, I think it would be flip. But just like hearing how like the cast has interacted with some of these players, like it seems like they all have a ton of respect for them or like a little awestruck by them. I know I was reading like the pre-show interviews and like they all want to work with Cherie and with Coach. So I think it could benefit these OGs in a way where the newer players want to work with them. Some of these new players are carrying targets of being winners. And I could even see some of them like trying to be honorable and being like, yeah, I'll bring a Coach or a Cherie to the end because if they win, like that's a great story and it's Survivor 50. So I kind of like it for the OGs here.
I would say I'm looking at all returnee seasons, right? I'm like, okay, how do these seasons usually play out? I'm looking at Cambodia, and I'm thinking, okay, the OGs walked into a different game. Jeff Varner, Kelly Wigglesworth, they just couldn't keep up with the game. The only OG member that even went far in Second Chance was Kimmy Kappenberg in Final Six. She was the only one left from kind of the OGs aspect. And then in Game Changers, once again, the OGs really struggled. Sandra was a pre-merge boot. It was a real JT was a pre-merge boot. So it was again the final 3 was Sarah Lucina, Brad Culpepper, and Troy Zen. These are really recent players. Ty, recent player, Aubrey recent player at that time. So and then at Winners at War, you saw it to the nth degree. All the OGs seemingly were out early. It was Ethan out early, Boston Rob, Sia, Parvati, Sia, Sandra, Sia. All the OGs seemingly again could not keep up with the newbies. So I'm hoping that these OGs who, like you said, Theo, are not winners, I hope they did their homework. I hope Kobe's at home saying, okay, how can I actually play like a newbie and be on this beach and actually integrate with these guys? I'm hoping Ozzy. I'm hoping Coach. I'm hoping Stephanie, all these people, Jenna. I just don't see it. I'm going to lean new era because once again, my issue with the OGs, and I am rooting for them, is they're walking into, by and large, a different game. Like, again, last time Stephanie played, last time Colby played, last time Jenna Lewis played, there was not these advantages. Like, there was idols. With Jenna, there was no hidden immunity idols, but with everyone else, it was only hidden immunity idols. There was not like 5 different advantages on the same season. They just didn't have that in the pre-20s era. They just didn't have that. Post-30, you're getting all these advantages. And I think that's where the line kind of gets drawn. I think the Rick Devons, I think the Chrissies, who are the 35 and the 36 and the 38s, those guys could have some success, but the actual true OGs, like pre-season 34, like you mentioned, X, which is kind of like where we divide it, those guys, I think, unless they can adapt, I think they're going to have some trouble because it's just unfortunately a different game. The speed of the game is different. It's only 26 days. You have to hit the ground running or you just have no chance.
I want to say this. So in Cambodia, I think Savage was fantastic. He got idled out, obviously, famously by Wentworth, but he was kind of running the game for
he was in a good
portions
spot
of that game. So I think it can be done. And after what happened at Winners at War, I think there is this kind of alertness that is heightened by these OGs that they are the biggest threats out there. Whether that's right or wrong, they just simply are because of the name value. And I think because of that reason, their game plan can be a little bit different. They have that tape. They can watch 40. They can see what happened. They can see how, in a way, the OGs were flirting with turning on each other early and also banding together. They couldn't really get their story straight on what they wanted to do. And ultimately, that hurt them because they were looked at as kind of shady, playing both sides, etc. Right? I think you'll see something a little bit different here. And reading these pre-game interviews, because all the Dalton Ross stuff from Entertainment Weekly, these one-on-one interviews are done before the season starts. So we're not getting tea leaves here. This is truly their pre-game thoughts. When you look at stuff Colby said, and Cherie, and Stephanie, and Coach, and Ozzy, you see a similar theme throughout, which is this idea of kind of adapting to these modern players, which I don't think you saw in 48 Winners at War. I think Boston Rob wanted to play Boston Rob's game. I think Parv wanted to play Parv's game. Same with Sandra and etc. I don't think you're going to get that this time around. I think all of these players are aware enough to know that you kind of have to meet these players at where they are at this current point in time. And I think, especially with like an Ozzy and a Colby and a Cherie, it might be over the top. It might be doing too much, trying to meet them where they're at. But I think it will at least get them deeper in the game than some of their counterparts. But because they're kind of trying to meet the other people where they're at, I just like New Era for this question because they're already there. They're where they want to
Yeah.
be. They're the kind of cool kids at the lunch table, if you will. And all these OGs are coming over to them looking for a spot.
Real quick, I don't think this is going to be like, I don't think we're going to get really old school versus new school. Like, I could see maybe an Ozzy being like, we need to form this old school alliance. But I think that idea of an old school alliance is, I think that should be viewed as archaic at this time of season 50. Like, you kind of just got to go in and blend in and try to play.
Yeah, I would say real quick on the Savage point. Savage was in a good spot, but Savage's downfall was an OG move. He didn't split the votes. He put all 10
Yeah.
votes on Wentworth, and there's no world where Savage should have ever gotten voted out in that tribal council. But because he was so naive to the point of like, oh, Wentworth, they don't have any idols. They don't have any idols. We'll just dogpile all of our votes on Wentworth. It's a bit of an old school move. Nowadays, I hope these guys all did their research. I'm assuming no one's going to put 10 votes on somebody, but the new era, it's you're splitting votes, you're counting votes, you're thinking extra votes, block of votes, whose votes is going where, is votes getting stolen on this, journeys, it's a different game, unfortunately. So I hope these OGs can catch up to what is ultimately a different game than the last time they stepped foot on the island. I guess Suri and Ozzy, who are both on Game Changers, leave those guys out of it because they actually have played a recent enough season to the point where there's advantages, idols, and all the other stuff in between. But for the other guys, the coaches who have not played since South Pacific, or not Ozzy, the Colbys who haven't played since Heroes Villains, the Stephanies, the Jenna Lewises, obviously, like those guys, it's been a while now. Can they adapt? But I agree with you, Theo. I don't see the OGs actually aligning because there's not enough of them really to even do that. I don't think. Like you said, it's pre 40 and then post 40, and there's only 12 in each. So I think, like, do you consider Aubrey an OG? I don't, but she played on 32.
I think in this cast, she would be considered an OG.
She's a 4-time player now. Yeah.
I want to shift gears here to kind of another macro question, which regards the winners. So we were talking about this when the cast was released. We didn't really like that there was a small pool of winners. We wish there was either more winners, like half winners or something of the sort there, or just no winners at all. But regardless, we're here. We have a couple winners on the cast. Who do you think has the best chance of pulling a Sandra or a Tony or Parvati, if you include Australia, and becoming a two-time winner and kind of elevating themselves into these Mount Rushmore / GOAT debates?
I kind of think, I don't think either of them will. Any of them will, I should say. I think, in Game Changers, you saw Sandra was a pre-merge boot and JT was a pre-merge boot. When you only have a couple winners on a mostly non-winner season, those guys generally just get targeted early. So I think it's going to be tough sledding for all three of them. I think Savannah, there's almost no way because of she's got an unknown already on her. She's got a question mark on the box, basically, which has not been opened yet. So I don't think they're going to let Savannah, go too far in this game because there's already an unknown about her. So I think it comes down to D and Kyle. And to me, I would lean Kyle because I think his ability to integrate socially is a little bit better than D. D was obviously in the inner workings of a very powerful foursome alliance. One of the more powerful fours in the new era, where they did not at all ever abandon each other until late in the game. Obviously, like they stuck to their guns, which is a very old school way of playing. But Kyle was able to kind of get in with everybody. I mean, even the other side, which was like not really pro Kyle and Camilla. Kyle still had good relationships with Shaheen, even though Shaheen and Camilla didn't really see eye to eye. He had good relationships with Mary. He had good relationships with obviously Joe and Eva. So I just think Kyle's ability to work with everybody on the island, I think it's gonna be tougher now because his is the most recent season. Like 40th, is the most recent season that they've seen. D is a little bit farther. I think he shoots in 45. But if I had to put my money on any of them, I would say Kyle if he can somehow. I just think he's a more well-rounded player. I mean, D is really good too. I just think that she's a little bit more a little more snaky, a little more sneaky of the two, and I think that might get her in trouble. And she also has nobody from that season back with her. At least Kyle has a Camilla, has a Joe. If they're able to link up at the merge, maybe there's people that are willing to work with Kyle. I think for D, it's a little bit tougher.
Yeah, I don't think D had her path to making it deep in the game is going to involve her having an outward facing role and probably like leading an alliance again. And when you're doing that with already the winner stink on you, I just don't see how you can make it to the end of the game.
Really difficult.
Here's my problem. So Savannah is the most recent winner in real time, and she's the unknown on this island, right? So she immediately comes in with no chance. Kyle, though, is the most recent winner in their minds from the time of filming. So that's the most recent season everyone else has seen. So he's on top of everyone's mind as well. So just going through this in my mind while we were recording, I actually changed my answer to D for that exact reason. I think Kyle is too fresh, and I think Savannah is too fresh for them to really have any chance. I don't
Too
know
recent.
if,
Yeah.
if they have any path whatsoever. Whereas D, somewhat of a recent winner, controlled her tribe from the outset, and everyone really appreciated that she was this dominant winner. But because of that, her threat level is so high. I think there's a world where they do the kick the can down the road thing, where she's such a big target. We'll keep her in. We'll keep her in. We'll keep her in. And then maybe at some point, D is able to just kind of work her way
Yeah.
and somehow make a run.
Yeah, she's the shield, but then all of a sudden, like she
Yeah.
keeps being the shield, everyone forgets about her.
Yeah.
She all of a sudden she has it's final 8, she has an idol, she
Exactly.
makes a big move. That's there. That's there for her.
That would be a dangerous territory to live in. I would not want to keep D around until final 8 because then I think that the end game she could actually kick it in high gear. I think for D, it's a good point because, and personally, I don't love that the 3 winners that they brought back are all very recent winners. I mean, we have back-to-back winners here in terms of Kyle and Savannah. And I'm just, again, thinking back to Heroes versus Villains. The most recent winner in everyone's mind that season was JT because his was 18 on Token Chains. And, he obviously was idled out of the game. So I think that for D and for Kyle, it's just gonna be one of those. We have to get them out. It has to be a big move. And I don't think either of them can really win the game again. I really don't. But if any of them do, I think again Kyle with the relationships. I know it's gonna be really tough because of the reason he's like the most recent winner in their minds. But I just feel like if Kyle's able to somehow avoid the early stuff, gets on a lucky tribe swap, there's a world where his team wins enough challenges. He doesn't see enough tribals. Maybe.
Yeah, and we mentioned this in the draft. I think Kyle's the most well-rounded player here as far as what he can accomplish.
Correct.
I just think because of that recent stink, he really has no chance. But I want to start honing in on some individuals here with some specialized questions. So for number 6, has Ozzy finally learned something from his other appearances? Watching Ozzy throughout my rewatches of Survivor, it's pretty apparent that he just runs the same game plan every single time. And in his pre-game interviews with Dalton Ross, he said he really wants to change stuff up this time. But Mike, can he actually do that, or is it just too far gone at this point?
I don't buy it. I don't buy the Dalton Ross interview. I don't think that he's going to change anything. I think that Ozzy is brought back for a reason, and I hope he doesn't change anything, by the way. I want to see the Ozzy that they brought back. They brought him back for a reason. He's played 4 times before. He's played, by and large, the same game all 4 times. I want to see it again. He can't win. I don't think there's any path for Ozzy to winning, even if he changes his strategy. We've seen Ozzy 4 times now that we have enough of an image now of you can't just randomly change everything in one. Oh, in 50, I'm going to be really different. You can't. You played 4 times already. They're bringing you back because of how you played those first 4 times, or you wouldn't have gotten a call back. So Ozzy's known as this legend already. I would just lean into that. And ultimately, however far you get, it is what it is. But I don't want to see him change anything because I don't want to see Ozzy. I don't want to see a different Ozzy on my screen. I want to see the Ozzy of old. Maybe that's the nostalgia of me talking, but I don't want to see an Ozzy who is, I mean, what could possibly change? How is he going to play any differently than he did the first 4 times? What does he have up his sleeve that I don't know? I mean, it's been 16 seasons, but like, is there anything that changed in this time span of, oh, now Ozzy's going to do this? He's got this in his game now. It's like, no, he doesn't. He's going to be, this is who Ozzy is. Ozzy's the same guy, he's just a little bit older. Looks a little bit older. Only 43, by the way. Which again, in this cast, a lot of people over the age of 40. So Ozzy's not that old in terms of the actual cast. I don't see how he could possibly change his way of playing. And now I don't think he learned anything. Maybe, and if he has, I don't think it matters because I don't think he's going to be able to get that shtick off of him.
Theo, I want to rope you in here. Why was Ozzy not the winner of his first season and then voted out every other time after that? What happened?
Because he didn't add anything else besides like being able to catch fish and like being good in challenges.
Correct, but like simply put, what was his fatal flaw as a person?
Like he just wasn't social.
Exactly.
He was arrogant.
Yeah, he was arrogant. He wasn't social. And my point I'm trying to make here is he is a little bit older. He is 43. I don't think he's going to have that young person arrogance he once had. He's not this like super ripped, handsome guy anymore. I'm not saying he isn't handsome still. I'm just saying he isn't like this heartthrob that he once was. And I think he would be the first to admit that as well. So I think that actually does bode well for a little bit of a change in character here. I'm not going to say he's going to play totally different, but I think that arrogance that comes from being like a Survivor superstar and being this like, reality TV heartthrob at the peak of reality TV, I can see how that weighs on someone and makes them arrogant and conceited and whatnot. I don't think he has that anymore. I don't think his head's the size of a balloon anymore. I think he can come in, be this elder statesman. He can still climb trees and hang onto poles for hours on end and catch fish and do all that. But I think he's just going to be a little bit nicer, a little bit more dad-like, if you will. And I think that actually could really help him in this game.
By the way, I agree. I think he will be more dad-like, and I believe he will be more approachable. And here's why I agree. In 34, if you rewatch it, he really wasn't that arrogant. He was actually a little bit less arrogant than he was in his 20s when he first played the first 3 times he played, which was, Cook Islands, Micronesia, and South Pacific. He was very arrogant all 3 of those seasons. Season 34, he really wasn't that arrogant. But it was more of a new school way of playing. Like we don't actually.
Mike, he was bitter. He was incredibly bitter about his first 3 exits. Which I don't think he will be here either. I think that bitterness, that arrogance, all that stink from his first few Survivor appearances, I think that goes away because he didn't even know if he'd ever be back on the show because of some of the personal choices he made off the island. So I think this is kind of playing with house money here for Ozzy. And I think that will breed a different side of it.
Right, but here's the last point on Ozzy. I feel like we don't need a provider anymore in Survivor. Like, and I say we as it's collectively. Like, it's only 26 days. There's a million tribe swaps. The merge is earlier than normal. And Ozzy's archetype, if you will, was important in the first 25 to 30 seasons of Survivor. An Ozzy archetype will never go home in the pre-merge because A, you need them for challenges. You need them to start a fire. You need them to climb trees and get coconuts. You need them to spear fish. So an Ozzy level archetype will never go out early in the pre-merge in the first 20 to 25-ish seasons. Now, no one really cares about the providers anymore. So the stuff he does bring to the table aren't as valuable in today's age. So he probably has to adapt to have any chance. I just don't think he can. There's really no way he can. I mean, he has to stay true to himself and be the Ozzy that we have on the island now. The issue is, unfortunately, with a 26-day season, doesn't bode well for him. The million tribe swaps doesn't bode. 24 people doesn't bode well for him. I don't really see how he's able to navigate through it, and I really am rooting for him. Like, I truly am. I just think it's really going to be uphill sledding.
No, I think he knows what he needs to do. I don't think he's going to be able to do it.
Execute it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the hardest part is the execution of it. I'm not going to say it's going to go swimmingly, but I think there is a path for him. I think you guys are discounting him a little bit too much. The more I've thought about it, the more I've really thought, like, if he can just be 70% of his physical peak, which is hard to do at his age, right? If he can be 70% of that, but be kind of a nostalgia version of himself where he's like a nicer, happier version, but can kind of reminisce about the good old days, I think that kind of is endearing to this cast. So I think there is a path for him. He just really needs to kind of combine all those things. And again, as you guys brought up, I don't know if it's possible, but if it is, I kind of like a potential Aussie run.
I'm with you. I don't think it's I think a lot of things has to go right. but I do think there's a world where Ozzy can go deep in this game. It just might not be the way we perceive it. It's like we imagine this is how it'll go, but in a season full of twists and turns, which it probably will be, I can't disregard anything. I can't put anything off the board.
Yeah, and I want to turn the page here to another frequent returner, which is Cherie. And even though it's been a while on the Survivor Island, we've seen her in Big Brother, we've seen her in Traders, we've seen her on Australia Survivor. She's been on our screens frequently the last few years, and that leads to this question number 7. Have we simply seen too much of Cherie for her to have a real chance at winning this game, Mike?
I think we have. And I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think Suri can win this game because we've seen her too much. I think that eventually on the island, if not already, she's the biggest threat on the beach. If she's not already, she will be eventually at some point in the season. There's some people who are medium threats, which again in this season there's 23 people. They're all threats. I don't think we disagree. They're all, at some point in the season they're all going to be threats at some point. But Suri has the biggest target on her back. She's not won before, but she's the best player to never have won. So that going in, it's like, well, if we keep Suri around long enough, she's going to work her magic. She's going to spin her webs, and we're all in trouble. Unfortunately, and again, we've seen her recently. So these people who maybe didn't grow up watching Panama, Exile Island, Micronesia, Heroes, Villains, they've seen her on Traders. They've seen her on Big Brother. They've seen her on Australian Survivor. They've seen her on Game Changers. She was great in all of those, in my opinion, at least. So it's going to be really tough for her to have a real chance. I think that everyone has a chance, but to win the game, I think that Suri is going to have to. It would be an unbelievable story. If you talk about the best story of season 50, who wins would be the best story. It would be Suri. I think she even mentioned it's like, this is my time. The stars are aligning. I can finally do it. I just feel like in a cast this large, there's just nowhere to hide. If you're Suri, you can't really. It's really difficult. And by the way, to make this a bit of a two-parter, I think she's the only one in here that with a win would enter the GOAT conversation. Because everyone on this cast is they're not necessarily legends. I think Winners at War there was 20 legends on the beach at the same time. This one we have only 3 winners, a few legendary players, but the whole cast is not full of. We don't have 20 Suris here. We don't have 20 like all-time players on this beach right now. But I think with Suri, if she's able to win the show, she would enter in that she would enter in the pantheon of the Boston Robs, the Parvati's, and the Tonys, and the Sandras. The two. She's not a 2-time winner, like a Tony and a Parvati and a Sandra are. But Suri would have just as much legs to stand on if she's able to actually win. The only thing she hasn't done in Survivor is win the show and then win an immunity challenge, individual immunity challenge. If she's able to do that, I think that would be unbelievable. Does she have a real chance? I'd lean no, and I hope I'm wrong.
Theo, what do you got on this one?
Well, I would say the knowledge that she's this social player that spins webs has been around for a long time, and she's usually still able to get into the game and spin her webs and make relationships. So I'm not ruling it out. I do think she actually does have a chance in this game.
I think my only issue with Saria, she kind of is the darling of the GOAT players, if you will.
Correct.
She's someone I see frequently mentioned as other people's favorite Survivor players, or even like you see TikTok edits of her, even stuff like that. She's really popular with our generation. And that could be helpful or it could be really hurtful because everyone understands her threat level. I want to push back a little bit on the GOAT thing. I don't necessarily disagree that she could be vaulted into that, but I'd argue like a Mike White, if he were to win, he'd be a winner and a guy who punted his other win when he could have easily won. So I think you'd have to mention him as far as logistics there. Even like a Charlie lost by a vote in kind of like ridiculous fashion. You could argue someone like that could be propelled into at least the neighborhood, right? Maybe not the conversation, but they're looking for property in the neighborhood.
Yeah. I just view Suri as already being in that next in line group. If we were to do so I view like if she's able to win, the only thing she hasn't done is won. So if she's able to do that, I think she would vault over like the Kim Spradlins, the Jeremy Collinses. Like she's already that good of a player. Whereas Charlie and Mike White are 2 of the best runner-ups I've seen, but they don't have that win. They've only played 1 time.
She's got to be the favorite to get voted out by this Billie Eilish boomerang idol. Like whatever the new twist is, like if you're the number 1 victim in line is going to be Suri.
Yeah, she's getting shafted by the Sabrina Carpenter swap. So good.
By the way, on Suri, she finished 4th place on Australia versus the World, lost in a fire-making showdown, or maybe she wins that show. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Jeff does let us vote on whether or not the Final Four fire making will be a thing this year. I know Chrissy was like, "Don't vote for it," because Chrissy obviously would have won her season if it wasn't for that twist. So if there is no Final Four fire making, again, I don't know if that's confirmed or not, but I think that we're able to vote on that. If there's not, and Cerie's in Final Four and she doesn't get shafted by having to make fire, which she really can't make much fire despite being on 5 times, if Cerie gets the Final Three, there's going to be almost no world where you can't give her the money.
Yeah, 100%. And I didn't really answer this question. I don't think she has a chance. I think I'd lean towards too much in the conscious of all these young players. I think
Yeah.
she's too popular. I think some of these other OGs, which we'll get to in a bit here, I think they have a better shot at maybe kind of sneaking their way in. But as far as Sari, too fresh in the public's mind. But speaking of the opposite side of this coin, Coach is back, folks. Coach is here. Is Coach the perfect Survivor 50 player? And I want to start myself with this one here. Here's the argument for it, right? Coach played this kind of pseudo cult leader role on Token Chains, and then his return a few seasons afterward, he was
South
kind of
Pacific.
robbed of a win because he was refusing to admit what he was doing. He was refusing to admit that he was manipulating others. He was falling on his sword that no, what he was doing was admirable, guys. He wasn't actually manipulating anyone, and that cost him a victory. So Coach is another like pseudo winner here, if you will. And I think his strategy just aligns perfectly with this kind of new era. I think if he's able to kind of shift the cult leader like thing to this kind of kumbaya leader, like everyone's happy, everyone's here at Survivor 50, Coach can go kind of far. He's in good shape. He's posting a lot of these ridiculous like training montages of him like drinking smoothies and running up steps and doing all these coach things. If he's in decent physical shape and can be somewhat competitive in individual immunities, and he still has that social acumen that proved well in Token Chains and then his returns afterwards, I think Coach has a really, really good shot at being an OG winner here on Survivor 50. What are your guys' thoughts here?
Theo, you want to go on this one?
Yeah, I kind of he'd be the perfect Survivor 50 winner, I think, for the franchise. Just like his whole story. I could even see like the game he plays where the jury's up there making his case for him. Like I do think he might be the most representative player of the 50 seasons of Survivor that we've had. And it seems like everyone's excited to be on the island with him and to work with him.
Here's what I would say about Coach. His first 3 times playing, like if you just look at, there's no secret as to why he's back. Obviously, Token Chains, he was one of the best characters in TV, and then he comes back in Heroes versus Villains, and you get the infamous Coach is melting down with Tyson saying, "Why does nobody like me?" And Tyson's kind of giving him a bit of some pro tips. It's like, stop wearing feathers in your hair, stop telling weird Coach stories. Nobody likes them. but, but I thought Coach in that season was really fascinating. He was kind of clinging to Boston Rob like a puppy dog, and then he actually ends up betraying Boston Rob and going to Russell with him and Jerry. And then in South Pacific, I think he played a phenomenal game. I think he played a cult-like game similar to what Boston Rob did the season prior in Redemption Island. Unfortunately, Coach didn't get anyone's respect at the end. It's a game where in South Pacific they're looking for the idol. Coach already has it in his back pocket, and they're praying, "Please, Lord, help us find this idol." And it was hilarious the whole everything unfolding that season the way it did. But Coach ultimately was not able to stand on his own 2 feet in Tribal Council. He was not able to say, "Hey, I played you all." And if he did that, I think maybe he wins the show. And then
Oh, easily, yeah. I don't think
yeah,
it's a question.
it's unfortunate because that was one of those where the jury questions got him. He was a huge. If you were to do like a who's the favorite going to this finale, Coach was a huge favorite going into that Survivor South
Yeah.
Pacific finale, and he just botched the ending game, and he knows it. For 50, that would be an ultimate redemption arc for Coach as to where he started in Token Chains as the character, in Heroes versus Villains as the guy who backstabbed Boston Rob and kind of was a little man in that season, as Rob alluded to him, and then in South Pacific playing almost a perfect game and then just botching it at the end completely. It would be like, Seattle not running the ball at the 1 yard line, but then coming back next year and winning it. It would be an ultimate redemption story for Coach. I hope it happens. I'm rooting for Coach too. I think he's an awesome Survivor 50 representative. So for the player, Coach, yes. And if he's able to win the show, like Theo said, that would be a really good representation of a Survivor 50 celebration.
Theo's alluded to this twice, but I want to spend a little bit more time on it. Reading these Dalton Ross interviews the last few days, preparing for our draft and then this show today, it's very clear Coach is like the other favorite adjacent to Sari. Everyone loves this guy. I think Camilla even said, like, by far most favorite Survivor player ever is Coach. He has this kind of aura to him. And sure, some of it is kind of the laughing at him, not with him. But I think there's enough laughing with him for him to make a run here. Because Coach is endearing. And does he believe his own stink? Yes, he does. But at the end of the day, it is kind of heartwarming. He is a good person, right? He is a nice guy, if you will. He just has this edge to him that works so perfectly with Survivor. He can backstab. He can kind of justify anything he does on this island, and that's why it works. I think Coach has a really good shot. If we were kind of listing pre-game odds, I think of the pre-34 players, I think Coach would have the highest odds to win this show.
Coaches, he's played with every single archetype of player you can think of. Like, for example, Christian's on the season, right? Coach has played with Cochran before. He can deal with a Christian on the island. Coach has played with a JT before. He's played with a Tyson before. He's played with Taj. So he's ready for any archetype you throw at him. He can be like, yeah, I played with this person too. So he's played with Ozzy already. He's played with Colby already. He's played with Sari and Stephanie, and he's played with every single. He's been on these all-star seasons, if you will, heroes versus villains. I view Token Chains as an all-star season because there's how many people got called back on that show. South Pacific, he played with Sophie, he played with Ozzy. It's just like he's played with every single archetype. Why wouldn't you want to work with Coach? Because you've seen his resume. You've seen who he's able to line himself with. And it feels like he's got a legit shot at winning this game. Of all the OGs, I would give him maybe the best chance because I think Sari, with her, it's like she's more dangerous than Coach, I think, without question, because of how well she's been at all these games, not just Survivor, Big Brother, Traders, and everything else. With Coach, we've only seen him on Survivor, but I think he's got that aura too, and he's just not as dangerous as a Sari, which actually would bode well for him.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I want to kind of look big picture here, though, for Survivor 50 as a whole. There's been a lot made of this franchise entering this season, kind of the downward spiral of Survivor as this social commentary. But the ratings don't really suggest that. The ratings have been really steady. It's one of the most consistent cable TV number putter uppers that there is. Survivor is really here to stay as far as making money for Paramount and CBS. But I think there is this concern if we're still on this track, that reality will no longer cease to exist. So, my question here for number 9 is this Jeff's last chance to put the magic back in the bottle and kind of make Survivor what it was? And I want to pose this suggestion. Winners at War was Survivor 40. That was supposed to be this big kind of cultural moment for the show. And obviously, the ending and the airing of it coincided with COVID, so it was a little bit awkward at that time. But that's not why Winners at War flopped, in my opinion. It flopped because there was far too many advantages at one time. There was the Redemption Island arc. There was the fire tokens. There were these twists that were thrown into the game. There was all these idols as well. There's just a lot going on. And with all these winners, no one really wanted to see that. And in my opinion, there's an argument that Winners at War kind of laid the path for a new era with all these advantages and all these idols and all this like Jeff Kumbaya stuff, right? So if 50 is leading the runway for the next 10 seasons of the show, how integral is it for Jeff to kind of get this magic back in the bottle?
I think it's really important. I think this is almost, I think it is maybe the last chance he's able to get this magic back in the bottle, because you've heard the fans' criticism of the new era seasons. So because you know what the fans want, this is really the foundation. This is the launching pad for what you'll get for the next 9 to 10 seasons. And this is really important to get this right, and make sure that the fans do really like this new era, if you will, because we've just got the new era of 41, 49. This is a really impactful season. I don't know how it's going to play out, but from the trailers we saw, I think we'll still get a lot of advantages. I hope we'll tone back on the sheer amount of ridiculous ones. I hope we peel back on the amount of times people are losing their votes, and we only have 2 votes at Tribal. But we've already seen Boomerang idols, we've seen Mr. Beast, we've seen Jimmy Fallon stuff. If the new era of Survivor is, getting celebrities to endorse the game, I would be a little bit turned off. But I'm not gonna. That's just a 30-second trailer that maybe is not what the season is about at all. So I'm really hopeful, but I do think that Jeff is running out of time as far as like, if this is a flop, if 50 is a flop, which it just can't be because of the sheer amount of names on this island and people that we wanted back on our television screen, it seemingly can't be a flop unless you get in the way and ruin it. Like if you let players just take off, there's almost no way we can complain as fans. Like this is what we asked for. We got a lot of people that we wanted on the island. Just don't interfere with the game in ridiculous ways. I don't want to see, with 6 people left, Suri get voted out with no votes. That would be a stain on the season if that happens. So I'm hoping that we're able to tone back a little bit of the ridiculousness that we've gotten in the last 10, 15 seasons. And if that happens, I think that we do have some magic left in this bottle. But if it doesn't, I won't be as hopeful for the upcoming season.
Yeah, they've dug their toes in too on this, like, 26 days we're going to be on in Fiji. Like, the rewards are going to be pretty stagnant. So I think, like, if they can't make this season work, they're going to have to look at changing that, because no one that's into Survivor, I think, really likes the uniformity of now every season being in the same place and
Correct.
kind of repeating the same stuff.
Because, Theo, there's nothing unique about it. Survivor used to be this unique game. They'd be like, watch where we're going next season. We're going to go to the Australian outback. We're going to go to China. We're going to go to Cambodia. We're going to go to Africa. Now we're always going to be in Fiji, and we're always going to be on 26 days, and it's going to be a low budget. We're not going to go to a volcano. We're not going to go to the ancient Cambodian temples. We're going to be at the, what is it called again? The little, the thing where they sit down at the whatever the thing is.
The shack with, I don't know. Yeah.
It's like, where good things happen. I forget what it's called, but that's where every reward takes place.
The sanctuary.
The sanctuary. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, the sanctuary where good things happen. That's all the rewards are. You're going to the sanctuary. And we know what the sanctuary looks like by now. But the fact that I couldn't even remember what it is, even though we've seen it for 10 straight seasons now, yeah, there's nothing unique about the seasons nowadays. So it's always going to be Fiji. It's always going to be 26 days. And we're always doing reward challenges in the sanctuary. So because you've lost that uniqueness about Survivor, you have to then get back to something that is what, built the show on. So if they're not able to get back to that, then what are we actually looking at here?
We almost need someone, when Jeff drops a worth playing for on this season, someone needs to just step up and say no.
Nope. I'm with you. I totally agree.
I think my problem with modern Survivor is, as someone whose family watched the show, but I didn't when I was a kid. I saw like bits and pieces, but most of my Survivor watching has come over the last few years here. So not watching in real time made me appreciate, like, looking back at the lens through people in, we'll call it 2007 and then 2014, and you see the evolving of these people's minds, especially about other cultures. And there is something beautiful in that when you'd have these visits. A classic one, you'd always go to like a local schoolyard. I loved that. And you would
Awesome.
see these little kids and they'd be so grateful that they'd have these Survivor players help them. They'd help feed them or play with them or whatever. There was something so endearing about that. And then you'd hear the analysis of those people talking about how that was such a precious moment in their lives to be able to give back on the island that they're playing for $1 million on. Just help those local people and kind of adapt to their culture. That was amazing television. And I think the budget be damned. The ratings would be better if you did this again, and then you'd make more money, and then the budget wouldn't matter. Why do these big networks not understand this? It's actually mind-numbing.
Even when it was like obvious ad placement, it was good though. Like when they would do like the Outback Steakhouse reward, and they would just like eat Outback. Like that somehow was better than the Sanctuary as well.
I was just
even if they're
Outback
selling
Steakhouse.
out, like yeah.
I'm with you. I love the rewards where they would actually go and hang out with kids and play basketball and have legitimate food from that island. And it just feels like we've lost that aspect. Because no disrespect to the Sanctuary, but is that a life-changing moment that you would go on? Or will you go on these things where you're actually at a unique place? I remember in All Stars, like Rob and Amber had like they were sitting in like a Chevrolet car watching movies.
Yes.
Something like that. We're never gonna get anything like that ever again in Survivor, I don't think. But just things like that where it's like, man, this is a once in a lifetime thing. Who would ever be saying that you're gonna be at the edge of a volcano eating a picnic for a reward challenge? Like, it just doesn't happen anymore. Like, the scenery of everything was incredible. We've lost that luster to the show. I'm a little bit bummed out because it's the nostalgia part of me, but I also just think it's better television. I mean, like you mentioned, X, why they don't do that, I don't know. It wouldn't really make much sense to me, but we've lost that part of Survivor, which I really wish we were to get back.
By the way, my answer to this is no, with a caveat, because I think Survivor 50 is being billed as the celebration, this big kind of welcome home season of the show. I think 51 will be the last season to put the magic back in the bottle. I think it needs to start with 50. I think we need to see actual changes implemented here. But I think it's 51, especially if it's an all newbie cast, because Jeff seems so reluctant to bring these returners back. Maybe that's because of how 50 went. I don't know. Maybe that's Jeff being Jeff. Kind of tough to tell with that guy sometimes. But I think it needs to happen within the next calendar year. I don't think it has to be 50 per se, but by this time next year, if the Magic's not back, we're in a rough place.
Yeah, I mean, 50 is to me the launching point, though. So if 50 is bad per se, it doesn't give you a good taste in your mouth heading in at 51. You know what I mean? Like with 40,
100%.
some people didn't like 40, and then it already was on a bad foot. The second we stepped on the island for 41, it's like, ugh, you know?
And it didn't help that 41, I believe on IMDb, has like 5 or 6 of the worst episodes of the show's history. It's staggering how poorly that season was received by the public.
Correct.
So we cannot have that with 51 or have that the start of that with 50 here. But guys, it's time for the main event. It's question 10. Who the hell is winning this thing? I think this has been a question that's kept me up at night, to be honest. My head's been on the pillow. I'm trying to go to bed, and I have visions of Suri in my mind, and I'm like, can she do it? I don't think Superwoman could do it.
I would be incredible.
How about Emily? Emily said it would take something incredible to happen for her to win, so it can't be her. Okay, there goes Emily.
Well,
What
hang
about
on a second
Jonathan?
now.
Can he? Yeah.
Well, hang on a second. I think something incredible has to happen in this 50. I mean, we're not gonna get a whole season of like no.
So we're going in with something already incredible has to happen.
Something incredible is going to happen.
Okay.
I don't know if Emily will be the one. I don't know if Emily will be the one on the receiving end of something incredible happening, but I think that there's something will happen. Like there might be an unexpected winner that only wins because of something unbelievable.
Mike, I've been thinking that too. When I flip to the other side of the pillow, I'm like, this is Survivor 50. We have Billie Eilish Boomerang Idols. We have some of the legends of this game all in one island. Something big is happening. And I came to the conclusion the only possible winner has to be from Titletown. It has to be a Boston guy. It has to be Charlie. Because of all the players on this cast, what I look for is who's shown me they can win before, right? So we have 3 actual winners. Then we have some other people that kind of got hosed. And there's at least 2. There's at least a Mike White who punted a win. You're not going to get closer to a winner of that. Then Coach didn't really own up to his end game. But then there's Charlie, who was a jury vote away from something magical happening. But he was really the best player on 46. I think that is kind of the wide standing
universally known. Yeah.
But I don't know on a cast with like even Mike White, Devins, Jonathan, D, Savannah just coming off a win, Suri, Ozzy, all these people. I don't know if Charlie's going to be regarded as this like amazing player, but I think he is one. So in that case, that disparity, I want to take advantage of that because I think Charlie can kind of run back the same playbook, but without kind of the notion of him doing such as if Suri were to try that or as Ozzy trying to do that and so on and so forth. So I like Charlie here bringing another championship back to Boston.
I'm still a little stumped. I want to hear Theo's pick because I really don't even know what I'm thinking.
I don't know. I went into our draft thinking that Coach had no chance of winning this game, which is now kind of making me think that he might win this game.
This is incredible.
Sell us. What's the pitch?
Yeah, I just because I overlooked him at first. I was like, Coach, like he's a joke. Like we've kind of seen it. You kind of forget like that he ran an entire season of Survivor, and I just wonder if he's gonna have the same kind of effect with the cast, where all of a sudden like we get post merge and like Coach is actually just running this whole game. And then if he's able to get to the end, I think he's gonna be able to put together one of the best speeches you'll ever see. So
I honestly don't hate the case. I really don't hate the case at all. I hope
I don't either.
This cast to me reminds me more of the Game Changers cast than the Winners at War cast. I mentioned previously there's not as many like pure legends on this exact cast. There's a few people who've only played one time. Because of that, I think that the big personalities, the huge threats, are going to be targeted early, just like they were in Game Changers. You saw Sandra was out pre-merge, Tony was out pre-merge, Malcolm out pre-merge, JT pre-merge, Sierra first out, voted out her mom. And that season was dominated by social butterflies. It was also dominated by strategic threats. Sarah Lacina, the different Sierra. Ree, Zeke, Aubrey, Andrea to a degree, and Social Butterflies. Ty, Suri again. Weirdly enough, Troyzan kind of reinvented himself and was a social butterfly. No one wanted to vote out Troyzan this season. Very weirdly enough. And then obviously you had Brad Culper, but it was the one guy in the merge when the merge happened, besides Ozzy. He was the only big physical guy on that beach. So it was a season largely had only strategic threats left, and then the social butterflies who could win a challenge. So I think the season will be, once again, tough for the massive threats. So I'm not going to go to any of those guys. I'm going to stick with the guy I picked first overall. I think Rick Devens is the perfect blend of, he's not one of the people that you're immediately targeting the second that he sits on the beach. They steps on the beach. But I also think by the time the merge happens, all the big physical males might not be there. Maybe Jonathan, but he'll have such a big X on his back that he might not be able to get past that. Joe, Ozzy, there's just too many of them that they're all going to eventually not go undetected. And I think that Rick is the one who can come out of that mess as, it's like, oh, Rick Devens. You don't really think of him as like a challenge beast. But if you go back and watch that season, he was a puzzle master. He won all the puzzles that they were. And again, he was going up against a lot of like inept challenge people for the most part. It was just like Gavin was his only legitimate competition. Lauren was good at challenges, but like, you know, I think similar to this season, we could have a final 8 of people who aren't all that great at challenges, but they're really good strategic threats. I'm thinking about Christian, Aubrey, Sari, Mike White. If you tell me that those people are going far and Rick is in that group, I think Rick can run the late season, you know, puzzle stuff, the endurance stuff, the challenges where there's like 5 different things you have to go through. I think Rick can do all those. He's already shown he can do all those. So I think Rick Devens is my winner pick. And again, he's also my first overall pick. So I'm kind of doubling down on the Rick Devens train now. So I'm going to feel really, really bad if he's like an early boot, obviously. But I think that my logic is I can't pick somebody who's such a big target and such a big, well-known name. I don't view Rick as a well-known enough name. He's only played one time. And like you said, it was a gimmick season. So I think all those things bode well for him.
I think it is kind of funny, Mike. You stuck with your draft analysis, but me and Theo just went way off our draft board there. And I think part of that is having a few weeks to think about it. Our draft did just come out the other day, but we recorded that a few weeks back. We've seen all these interviews. We've thought about it a bit more. It's kind of funny how it all changes quickly. Who knows? Maybe in a week from now, during the premiere, I'm going to sit there and be like, how did I not think of this person as my winner? And I think that's kind of the fun part about season 50 is that there's so much anticipation about this because it is kind of like a last stand of this Survivor of yesteryear. Even though there's so many new era players, it is kind of the greats of this game clashing from 2 separate eras. And there's something great about that. So I'm looking forward to that.
By the way, if I was going to hedge my bets and if I was going to bet on a person in the new era and I really want to trade with you and get this guy on my team, I would pick Joe of any new era player to win the show, to win the game. And I know I'm already getting people shaking their heads. I'm already seeing it. But I think Joe played a phenomenal non-winner game in 48. I think if Joe gets back to those final 3 chairs, I think he wins the game. I would like to hedge my bet if he's able to do that again. If he's able to play if he's able to do the exact same thing and go back to the final 3, playing the way he plays, he will get this jury's respect, unlike the 48 people who were all newbies and they didn't like that way of playing. There's enough OGs on this season that will respect the game that Joe played because it was a very pre-30s game that he played. It just happened to be in a jury of guys who were not really a big fan of the way that game was played. But I digress. I think if Joe's able to get the final 3, I will absolutely be hammering Joe to be a winner. I'm getting eye rolls, but
with the exception of Sari, Joe literally admitted he's fearful of the 5 best women on this cast. Good luck going in with that.
We're not going to tell anybody that. He's not going to outwardly say at the island, I am scared of these 5
women.
No,
he's not. But just having that in your brain, how does that not affect your gameplay? That just can't end well for you. If the 5 of the best women, you're just like, I'm out on immediately. There's no way that's going to bode well for him.
I love the arguments about Joe. I think you guys are going to be very surprised how well people, again, like Joe.
It was just like as soon as he faced conflict, like he was in control the whole time, but as soon as he faced conflict, he kind of completely melted down.
Well, again, he still never got voted out, and no one ever voted for him. So I don't really understand.
But he got 1 vote in final tribal.
It was a jury that it was a season 48 jury of people who never in this era of Survivor, the Joe archetype will never win the show. But because it's an all-returnee cast, I believe he's got a chance. If you look at all the people who have gotten to final 3, none of them who have played even similarly to Joe get anyone's respect in this new era of game, because the new era game wants cutthroat, blindsides, backstabbing. Joe's none of that. So he's not going to get any of those jury votes ever. But with a season of guys like Ozzy and Suri and Coach and some OGs with Jenna Lewis and Stephanie, I think he absolutely will have a case if he's able to blend his game with the new school players and the old school players, which I think he can. And I think in a returning season, people actually respect the game that Joe played on 48. I think if it was a returning jury on 48 and Joe played that game, Joe wins the show.
My hesitancy with Joe, which I wish I talked myself into more when we did the draft, is he probably played on the worst cast of recent memory. So he dominated those guys. I like, will that translate to this all-star cast? I just don't know. I see both sides of it.
I disagree with that. I don't think you get 3 people back on the show if the cast is that bad. I don't think. 41
I
got
think
0.
2 of those were amazing players. I think Joe was also there, and I think the rest of the cast was mostly terrible.
Like, they could have gotten Joe out. Like, Kyle just kind of determined that he could have beaten Joe. But like, if he ever needed to make a move against Joe, like, he could have done it, and Joe could have been out whenever, because Joe
was
didn't have a
huge
good
target
read on the
in
season.
final 9 down, and he lost the final immunity challenge and was still brought to the end.
Because Mike, he had no win equity.
Because he couldn't win the season.
This is. Have either of you guys watched Island of the Idols 39? It's the exact same game as Tommy, who was also dragged to the end and won almost unanimously. It was just a different jury. The jury respected Tommy's way of playing. It was the exact same game as Joe, but that jury didn't like the way that Joe played.
But I'm saying, like, this was known, like Joe, like, that's why Joe was brought to the end. Like, if Joe was a threat to win the game, I think he could have been eliminated. I don't think that's a situation he would have handled well, like, if he was about to get voted out.
Well, I mean, you heard Kyle's confessional. Kyle said, I think Joe's my biggest threat to win the game, but I can't sit next to the end with Camilla. So I have to physically get Camilla out of this game because I can't sit next to her. I think if it was Final Four of him, Eva, Joe, and anybody else, he's putting Joe in the fire. But also he didn't want to give Joe that last resume on his. So I think maybe he still takes Joe, but it wasn't because he was a GOAT. Nobody actually really viewed Joe as a GOAT. I think you guys maybe did, but Kyle did not want him to get that. I mean, Joe's gonna make fire in 2 seconds. I don't think he wanted Joe to have that.
Mike,
last
I think
resume.
you're making the mistake of the disconnect between Joe as the person and Joe as the Survivor resume. I think
he played a phenomenal game. Phenomenal.
Yeah,
game.
I think Kyle assessed at the time. I think you're making the mistake now, but we'll see. I drafted him pretty high because I talked myself into what you're saying right now.
I mean, again, if I was Kyle, I would have done exactly what he did, which is don't let Joe get that lasting impression of making fire and knocking out a Camilla. Don't allow him to do that because he's kind of on your tail as far as challenges won, relationships built. I just feel like that was a smart move on Kyle's part because I think Joe actually played a legit game. I mean, Eva got 2 pity votes because, she had a better story. Eva was not a better player than Joe. Joe was a universally better player than Eva. That's why he's back on 50.
Yeah, but I think he kind of controlled a bad group, a weak-minded group of people.
Hey, I mean, you guys think it was a bad cast? I think Shaheen's a good player. I think that Mary got dealt a tough hand. I think
I agree there.
Look, some people
I was
again,
into Mary preseason.
We're discrediting Joe for running the island of a bad cast.
If David didn't live in a trailer, but it lived in a 2-bedroom apartment,
right.
Would that have helped him?
Once again, the cast thing I just don't want to hear because Boston Rob had the worst cast of all time on Redemption Island and did whatever he wanted that entire season. I can't.
Mike,
get
the beauty of all of this? We'll find out in the next.
We'll find
out
a week from today.
Find out
exactly.
Wrapping up here, any final thoughts before Survivor 50 airs? Because we'll be on the air right after the show ends, just like me and Mike were for 49. We'll be here breaking it all down. But any remaining thoughts before the game actually starts?
I can't wait. I can't wait to see what it looks like. I can't wait for the 3-hour premiere. I can't believe it's a 3-hour premiere, but I'm hoping we get some drama. I'm hoping we get some fireworks. I'm hoping we get a good overall game of gameplay and strategy and everything underneath it. But I'm really excited to see what 50 looks like and how it unfolds.
Anything, Theo?
No, I'm just same sentiment. I'm excited. I actually just the timing that I got in on Survivor. I haven't watched one of these All-Star seasons as it's been coming out live. So yeah, just excited to watch it and then spend my whole week over analyzing everything that happened.
Last point, I want to see. This is kind of known information. I want to see extended confessionals with Colby. I want to see extended confessionals with Suri. I want Coach. I want Mike. I want to see all these guys on my screen. No offense, but more than the recent 40s players. I want to see the people who have not played in a long time back on my screen. So let's focus more on those people. I'm really interested to see how Colby looks at age 51. That is something I'm going to be really interested in looking at when the premiere episode happens.
I mean, presumably that's why the show is going to be so freaking long. But I also have the same sentiment as Theo. As a more recent Survivor watcher, just seeing this in real time is going to be special for me. And Mike, we talked about this with 49, which was a, up and down season. I think we appreciated it a little bit more because we were covering it each week and we were analyzing it in real time. So even when you have those lulls with the episodes, it is fun to just talk about and vent, and that does make the show kind of have more of a life for us in particular because we are analyzing it in real time. Hopefully, everything goes well. We will be on right after Survivor 50 premiere. We won't be live. That hurt the algorithm last time, so we will be recording it and then uploading it probably. I mean, around maybe 1 a.m. Eastern because they are just killing us with this
3-hour episodes.
runtime here. We
Yeah.
would be able to get this out right around midnight last season. Hopefully, we're able to do that as this progresses and the episodes get shorter, but it seems like we're going to have some mega episodes within 50. So we'll try our best to get it same day as much as we can to a same day release, right? So be on the lookout for that. And then who knows? We might have some gimmicks throughout the season as well. We'll do like a draft check in, maybe like a mid season draft as well. Who knows what we'll come up with. So be sure to look out for our Survivor 50 coverage across our platforms. Be sure to follow us on TikTok, Spotify, Instagram, and of course, here on YouTube. For Theo, for Mike, I am X. We are the Gurus, and we will see you next time. Peace.